Welcome to the Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore. It is Monday, October the 5th, 2020.
That's unfortunate. Because here, it doesn't matter whether you have forgotten it or if you never knew it. You will kindly remove your mask.
That was the official White House policy on masks. Actually, it was eyes wide shut. And quite frankly, that scene from the 1999 film starring Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman, and directed by Stanley Kubrick, his last film, typifies the White House and its carefree, psychopathic response and approach to the coronavirus. On this episode, the death cult continues, and Joe Biden and decency and you, the voter, with 29 voting days to go. Plus, news about more states whose registration deadlines are coming up. In fact, are today. That coming up next.
Live at the White House. It is stunning, Caitlin. The building behind you is really a coronavirus hotspot.
Yeah, we are now seeing how many people have tested positive, and the list is continuing to grow. And John, while we obviously wish Kayleigh McEnany well and that she has a speedy recovery from coronavirus, this is a sign of how the White House thinks that the rules do not apply to them. Kayleigh McEnany was told on Thursday that Hope Hicks had tested positive and that she was someone who was considered to have direct contact with Hope Hicks. However, she did not quarantine as is recommended if you've come into sustained contact with someone who's tested positive. And instead, she relied on negative tests that she took every single day and continued to come to work, as she did on Friday when she gaggled with reporters outside without a mask, and as she did yesterday, as she gaggled with reporters very briefly, probably for about 2 minutes, but still, once again, taking her mask off as she was approaching the microphone. And it shows this level of recklessness inside the White House where she is relying on having these negative tests, as you've seen several other officials as well, despite the fact that she did come into contact with someone that we now know is positive. Actually, 2 people, because she was also obviously around President Trump as well, and Hope Hicks. So it just goes to show how the White House has responded to this when everyone else, if you had come into contact with someone who had tested positive and you were told you were a direct contact, you would go into quarantine. And she chose not to do that, as have several other officials as well. So it's not just raising concerns about how we're seeing how prolific this outbreak is inside the West Wing and in the president's inner circle, but also how they're responding to it and how they are not doing what medical experts have advised. And instead, they are not isolating themselves when someone tests positive. They continue to come to work because Kayleigh McEnany said she was considered an essential worker. And now she's going to have to quarantine and work remotely for the next 2 weeks. This also raises questions about other people who have relied on negative tests. The chief of staff probably is the first one that comes to mind. And his staffer did just say that he has tested negative once again today. But he is someone who has been at Walter Reed with the president. Yesterday, the president did a briefing with his national security advisor and defense secretary virtually, but a picture from the White House shows President Trump receiving the briefing, not wearing a mask, and it does say in the caption that Mark Meadows was in the room. He says he's not pictured, but he was in the room as well, and we presume he was wearing a mask, but the president, who we know has coronavirus, wasn't. So it just raises so many questions about how the White House has responded to this and how they have been irresponsible at best in the way that that they have taken these positive cases, and instead of quarantining like they were told to do or like they were advised to do by the CDC guidelines, they instead believe that a negative test grants them immunity from coronavirus. And what we are seeing with Kayleigh McEnany testing positive shows that it doesn't. Now, there are a few other officials, John, I just want to note, that were pulled off of the trip on Thursday. That was when Hope Hicks was testing positive. McEnany maintains she did not know that Hope Hicks had tested positive when she briefed reporters in the briefing room without a mask on Thursday. But we were told that she was pulled off the trip to New Jersey that day. So there was an inkling that something was going on, yet she continued to hold that briefing. And then we're told she was informed later on that day that Hope Hicks had tested positive.
It is, as you put it, as reckless behavior. Caitlin Collins live for us at the White House. Appreciate it.
Welcome back. That was Caitlin Collins of CNN, the White House correspondent, who is doing an excellent job here, covering this and many other things. I think she's been absolutely terrific. Her work and her... she has just come straight out and been really tough, and that is good. In no uncertain terms, and that's what we need. We need more reporters like that at the White House, and we do have others: Paula Reed, Yamiche, Wei Zhao, among those who really have been doing stellar work reporting. They have been fearless, they have been good, they've been tough, they have been excellent at the way they've been doing their job. So I just want to say that first. Coronavirus is the number one thing in this country. That is no doubt about it, along with healthcare. Those two things go hand in hand. And there's been little care for health, very little at all, by this White House. That second clip you heard was Dana Bash, also of CNN, who made a very, very clear point, an obvious point. And it is something that people have to get in touch with now and come to the conclusion that this White House is a death cult. Kayleigh McEnany, the White House press secretary who claimed that she would never lie in her job and then promptly did within seconds of her first press conference earlier this year, or last year, whenever it was, is now tested positive for coronavirus. She now has tested positive. The ignorance is absolutely staggering. I don't like these people. I don't like Kayleigh McEnany. She lies. But of course, I don't want to see her get sick. I don't want to see any harm come to her at all. And so I do hope that Kayleigh McEnany does recover. And also the two aides, apparently two aides to her as well, have now come down with this virus. Tested positive. That's the news on this Monday, with 29 voting days left. You've got Donald Trump wanting to leave Walter Reed. He's begging. He's throwing temper tantrums, begging to leave. I want to go. I want to go, like a little six-year-old kid with a tantrum. I want to go. I want to go. This guy is willing to die in order to win, quote unquote, a presidential election. This guy is willing to do anything in order to, quote unquote, win an election. He is willing to infect Secret Service agents, as we saw in that ridiculous psychopathic, sociopathic stunt that he pulled on Sunday at Walter Reed, getting in the motorcade and in a hermetically sealed vehicle with two Secret Service agents. He is willing to get other people around him sick. We've seen that now. At least a dozen people who attended the event a week or so ago in the Rose Garden for Amy Coney Barrett have all tested positive. They include Senator Tom Tillis, Senator Mike Lee, both Republicans. They include Kellyanne Conway. They include the Reverend who is the president of Notre Dame University. They include many others. Many others. Melania Trump is infected with this virus. You've got, as I said, the press secretary who was also in attendance at that event 2 Saturdays ago. She's infected. I just mentioned that. Bill Stepien, the campaign manager for Donald Trump, he's infected with the virus. Nicholas Luna, one of Trump's assistants, he's infected with the virus. Chris Christie, who was also at that event, he is infected with the virus. Drove himself to the hospital yesterday. You've got another Republican senator, and I'm not sure whether he was at the event or not, but he also, Ron Johnson, is infected with coronavirus. People are calling him Russia Ron for some reasons that are pretty darn obvious. And his role in spreading lies that are straight from Putin talking points. But all these people have come down with this virus. You've got Bill Barr, who was at the event, who is quarantining now out of a quote-unquote abundance of caution. Does he have the virus also? I keep saying that you are going to hear and learn of more people coming down with this virus. And it is very clear to me, and I've said this many times, that this White House and this whole Trump cult is a death cult. You have doctors who are even allowing him to get in his limo in the motorcade and drive around when he's clearly sick. The doctor who lies there and lies in front of you and says, well, I just wanted to give an upbeat picture for the team and for the president. He stumbled and said, as if to say president. And then he stopped himself and said, for the team and the president. It is clear that Trump is telling Dr. Sean Conley, his White House physician, what to say at these press conferences. That is very dangerous. That is a fascist, tyrannical operation. Now the health professionals, the so-called health professionals, are now being dictated statements so that they repeat what Trump wants them to say. That's not how it goes. This country is completely in the thrall of fascism, and it has been for a long time, but this is such a clear outward manifestation of it. And people are still covering these events of people in the White House being sickened by this virus as if it's just a normal news story. This cannot be the protocol by the press. And that's why I think people like Kayleigh McEnany, now she's put a whole lot of people at risk. You have all these reporters. You have a New York Times reporter who's come down with this coronavirus. You've got other reporters. I think that reporter may have been one of the 3 White House reporters who's been sick with this virus. If maybe he's not, maybe he's a 4th reporter who has become sick. Kayleigh McEnany now has put lots of people at risk. And that's why we need people like Caitlin Collins and Yamiche and Wei Zhang and Paula Reed and others as reporters who are going into the lion's den and doing this really important reporting. This is a very dangerous situation, and we cannot have journalists reporting this as if it's just a normal thing. This is a death cult. This is a psychopathic, self-destructive, sociopathic death cult. And I think it's about time that people in the corporate news media say as such and say as much. This is not the kind of behavior that people across the country or anywhere around the world should be following or modeling. Oh, well, I got tested and it was negative, so I don't have to do anything because, hey, the test came back negative. I don't have to put on a mask. I don't have to physically distance. I don't have to quarantine. That is the mentality of some of the people who have been tested positive for this virus in the White House. That is the attitude of some of those who have come down with this virus. It is not a very wise attitude. It is insanity. We have 29 more days of voting until we get to the final day of voting, which will be November the 3rd. I urge everybody to vote early and end this madness. There is one group of people who believe in not wearing masks, who believe in just allowing virus to spread, who have governors across this country who do not close down meat plants until they're forced to do so, until people have died and after, and even then they're reluctant to do it if they do it. You've got governors like the one in Florida, Ron DeSantis, or should I say Ron Death Sentence, to borrow the phrase coined by Randy Rhoads, who are not closing bars, they're opening bars. When this virus continues to spread, oh great, let me open up the bars in the state. That's a real good move. Let me open up all the bars in Florida, and that's a great idea. What could possibly go wrong? You're drinking, you're inside, it's a closed space. Yeah, people are talking loudly, there's music, and so you're shouting to be heard. Yeah, you're shouting to be heard, and I can't hear you, so I've got to shout louder because the music's on in the bar. And yeah, what could possibly go wrong there? People and their saliva and their spit and their aerosol of their mouth, and they're talking and you can't hear them, and there's no mask on because you're not going to drink while you're wearing a mask. And I'm not going to force you to wear one because there's no mandate here in Florida and other Republican governor-led states. Yeah, why? What could possibly go wrong with that? What could possibly go wrong? I mean, I have no idea what could possibly happen when you don't have a mask on, when your testing sucks, when your tracing sucks, when your bloomin' contact tracing sucks, and your tracking stinks, and your tests are unreliable. What could possibly go wrong? You've got a state where most of the blooming people don't even have any real health care. Oh yeah, open the bars. That's a great idea. You have an opportunity in these days, and I urge you to vote early. You have a really good opportunity, everybody. Here in the United States, you can register to vote. I'm going to give you the registration deadlines. There are several states whose registration deadlines are today. This must be done. We must register to vote and vote right now early. That's the only way. If you vote early and if you vote in droves, your friends, your family, if you phone back and get people out to vote, believe me, we won't have to be having these daily reports after January 20th of next year of people continuously not caring about stopping this virus. There are going to be more people in and around that White House and in and around Capitol Hill who are going to get sick. The difference is that they will have the best treatment possible to deal with all of that sickness and illness from this virus. What will you have? What will your family have? What will your partner have? Your spouse? Your friend? What kind of protection will they have? Did they have? Would they have? When this guy wants to get rid of your health care, your Medicare, your Social Security, the Affordable Care Act. Donald Trump wants to get rid of all of that. Vote early. On the subject of voting early, do not forget that the Politicrat online store is available now for you to check out. Look at the t-shirts that I have for you. Wow, colorful, colorful, colorful. Vote early t-shirts, part of the Politicrat Vote Early t-shirt color collection. Get yours now. Look great in them and send an important message to voters everywhere. When you walk down the streets, let them see that you care about voting, but also care even more about voting early, especially now. Check out the Politicrat Vote Early t-shirt color collection online at the Politicrat online store at the-politicrat.myshopify.com. More colors will be added soon. Take a look at the colors we have now, and there are more to come. Vote early, everybody, and look good doing it. Welcome back. It is October 5th, and that means that there are voter registration deadlines. I've been reminding you, if you've been listening regularly to this podcast, of voting deadlines. I have a list of voting registration deadlines and a complete comprehensive guide to registering to vote in every single state. So for those of you, if you are in any state at all, please, you want to consult the guide that I have posted on Twitter. It is a pinned tweet at the popcorn REEL. So first of all, I want to say that. Second of all, today, as we are in the 5th day of October, now with 29 voting days to go until we get to the last voting day of this election season, I want to let you know that there are a slew of voting registration deadlines today. So today, Monday, is the last day to register to vote in the following states: Arizona, Georgia, Hawaii, Indiana, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Ohio, South Carolina, and Texas. Today, October 5th, Monday, is the last day to register to vote in those states that I have just read out to you. If you live, or if you know someone who lives in Arizona, Georgia, Hawaii, Indiana, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Ohio, South Carolina, or Texas, please remind them today by text, by email, with a phone call, with a tweet, whatever you've got to do. Please remind people in those states that today is the last day they can register to vote in this general election, which is coming up, of course, the last day of which is coming up on November the 3rd. Very important. I will continue to tell you either the day before or on the day of voting registration deadlines. I have been tweeting them out. And as I said, I've got a comprehensive list of links to official state voter registration links, how to register to vote, where to vote, how to check your registration, where you can check it, all of these and a lot more. If you want to be a poll worker, applications for it, applying for absentee ballots, everything. I mean, I have got a slew of resources for you that you can find on my Twitter handle as a pinned tweet at the popcorn, REEL. There is also the website iwillvote.com, but that is the only one that I really recommend because it is accurate as well. But the best thing to do, and not just because I'm the one that put the voting guide together, but really because I put this together with links from the actual websites of the secretaries of state and the election commissions of every single state plus Washington, D.C. So this is official information. And I have spoken, of course, a week or two ago with Arizona's Secretary of State, Katie Hobbs, and she talked in detail about how strong the Arizona voting system is. The voting integrity is really great in Arizona and is everywhere, really. I think one of the great things about Donald Trump not being able to get out and about is that he, for at least 2 weeks, won't be going on about the integrity and lying about the integrity of voting. He won't be undermining it for 2 weeks, as he's been doing for 4 years plus. So, I mean, this guy is absolutely on a mission, and he wants to leave early. As I said, he will leave office early if he's not careful, because this is exactly what you would do, what he is doing. But voters, everybody who's listening to me right now, if you have not yet voted and you are in an early voting state, over 40 states in this country offer early voting. If you are in an early voting state, I would advise you right now, I am telling you to get out there and vote. Do it now. And as I said, I would really love for you to vote in person. But I understand there are people in states where the virus, or living in places in states where the virus is climbing, is getting worse again. And so people, depending on where they are in a state, might be very, very reluctant to go out there and vote in person. If that does apply to you, make sure that you vote by mail. Fill out your ballot. Make sure that you've applied for it, obviously. When you receive it, fill it out and drop it off at a drop box or at your local county board of elections office. I would advise you not to mail it back through the postal service. Instead, please drop it off at a drop box. If you can't do that, make sure that you get someone to drop it off for you, someone you trust, preferably yourself, that you drop it off at the local county board of elections. In fact, I recommend that you do that yourself. There's so much chicanery going on. We've seen it in Texas and in Pennsylvania, and I'm going to be on top of that and get in touch with people in those states, because this is really important, what's going on. But first and foremost, voters have to be aggressive and ruthless. When you vote, vote in every single race on your ballot. Every single one. Do not leave anything out. Do not forget to fill out everything. And when you vote, vote Democratic. From the White House to the dog catcher house. Leave no stone unturned. We are at the hour of no mercy, no let up, We must be relentless. We must be voluminous. We must vote in droves. We cannot afford to be sidetracked. We cannot afford to be distracted. We cannot afford to get caught up in the madness of this death cult. This is the time to stay focused. This is the time to tell everybody you know to vote, to help them with that, to assist them, to tell everybody to phone bank. We need a turnout like this country has never seen before. We need a voter turnout that America has never witnessed before in its history. It must be large. It must be unending. This moment demands that we act. And your vote is not just your voice, it is also your power. So use it. Vote Democratic from top to bottom.
Fundamentally differently, and I'm in a little bit of a spot here because I don't want to be attacking the president and the first lady now, because they're now have contracted coronavirus, and Jill and I pray for their quick and full recovery.
I should note, though, after Biden made those remarks, he did go on to criticize President Trump and his handling of the coronavirus pandemic. So clearly this is not an area where he feels like this is off limits for now.
That was Joe Biden's message over the weekend. He was doing a town hall at, I believe it was the American Transit Union or Transit Federation Union. I don't remember the exact place. But that was him talking about, well, I'm reluctant. I don't know that I really want to attack Donald Trump and the First Lady. And look, this is something that must be done. This isn't a question of attacking him personally or attacking her. This is a question of attacking a record of failure and willfulness and death. This is a national security threat. And I get it that Joe Biden wants to be portrayed as the decent one. I think it's pretty darn clear that between the two of these men, however much there may be disagreements amongst some of us about Joe Biden and about his legislative record, I think it's very, very clear that when you put Joe Biden and Donald Trump together on a debate stage, as you saw last week, or even if you just put their records and put what they've done side by side and who they've been side by side, there is a very clear difference. There is a very clear difference. Joe Biden is clearly someone, if you want to talk about decency, he's clearly someone who is a family man, who cares about family. Donald Trump is someone who cares about himself. Joe Biden, who could have picked someone else as his VP candidate, picked the person who challenged him on the debate stage and actually called him out for his stand against busing. There is decency in a person who is able to turn around and pick the person who got on the debate stage with them, faced off against them, and said to them, you supported policies that impacted and affected me. That tells you something about his decency, but more than that, that tells you something about his character. Now, like I said, I've raised questions about Biden, and of course, you should. But I think now, as we are in October, with 29 more days to vote, There is no question that when you put Joe Biden and Donald Trump together in one place, as you saw last week, who the decent person is between them. One of them interrupted the other 128 times on that debate stage. One of them was sick during that debate. And one of them has coronavirus and put 2 Secret Service agents in danger. Not to mention other people. And wants to go back to the White House to put more people's lives in danger. One of those 2 people killed over 210,000 people with his lies, his willfulness, and his destructiveness. There is no question about who the decent person is between the 2 of them. The decent person is clearly Joe Biden. So why Joe Biden has to say, well, I don't want to, I don't want to attack them. When they have destroyed this country, Joe, when they have killed 210,000 people, when at least 15 people around the White House have been infected just in the last week, from this event in the Rose Garden? When we've had White House aides throughout the year infected with this virus? When we've had people die like Herman Cain from this virus at one of Trump's rallies in Tulsa, Oklahoma? There's no question who the decent person is, Joe. It's you. The gloves must come off. The gloves must come off. The nation understands, Joe. The country really understands. You are the decent one here. Donald Trump is the devil, the Antichrist. I don't think people are confused. The Antichrist is the one who mocks people who wear masks. He mocked you on that debate stage last week. He's the one who said, I don't want to shake hands with those disgusting people. And that's the good thing about this virus. Olivia Troy told us that, told you that. He's the one who said this virus is going to go away. And in a matter of days, 15 cases will become close to 0. By the time April comes around, it'll be gone. Now he's telling you, I've learned about this virus, and you've learned about this virus? He hasn't learned a goddamn thing. This guy wants to go back to the White House having learned about this virus. He is clearly sick. Not just physically, but mentally. He is unfit in every respect. He wants to go back to the White House. He's begging doctors. Doctors basically would be committing medical malpractice right now if they listened to him. And they already have committed it by allowing that stunt to go ahead yesterday. We know who the decent person is, Joe. The nation is not confused. There are 2 choices, either him or you. And there are going to be people who are going to go vote for him. And I think there's going to be many more millions of people who are going to vote for you. The nation is clear, Joe. Do not worry that you're going to come off as nasty to them. You have already shown how gracious you've been to them. You've made it clear, you and all the other Democrats, to a fault, about how you want them to get well and how you want this and how you want that. Fine. Yes, Decency demands that you do that we do that people do that. Because not all of us are in the same boat about wishing someone who's killed over 210,000 people in this country, among other things, well. The gloves must come off, Joe. One of the things that I really am upset about is the way the Democrats, and Joe Biden as well, quite frankly, over this weekend completely lost every single day of the news cycle to the guy in his bed at Walter Reed, who probably has a severe case of viral pneumonia. And as a doctor that I talked to over the weekend said, you don't give drugs like whatever the drug is called, I now can't even pronounce it, Demoxestrelin, whatever it's called, you don't give that drug to somebody, a steroid. Dexamethasone, I think it's called. You don't give that drug to someone if they are well and if they are doing well. This is very, very clear. You cannot lose the news cycle over a weekend to a bedridden, decrepit psychopath with coronavirus. And that's one of the big issues I have with the Democratic Party, is that they do not have a killer instinct. They lack the killer instinct when it comes to stuff like this, because they are so busy wanting to be seen as the high-minded, self-righteous, and decent party. We want to show the world that we are decent people. We don't want to become them. Well, let me tell you something, Joe Biden, and to the Democrats. Criticizing this guy and these Republicans who are destroying this country is not becoming them. Is not becoming like them. Criticizing his piss-poor approach to this virus, his killing over 210,000 people, is not becoming like them. If you go at him now, this election will be over now. I think the nation is very understanding and clear. And don't think for a moment that if the shoe was on the other foot, that Donald Trump and these Republicans would not be hammering you tooth and nail, hammer and tong daily. Do not disavow yourself of that notion. They would be all over you, and you know it, Joe. I mean, even today, this guy is tweeting from his hospital bed at Walter Reed, saying things like the Democrats are going to raise your taxes, lying to you. Lying in his tweets from his hospital bed. We know who the decent person is, Joe. We know who the decent person is. So today, Donald Trump refuses to pull his ads against you, the negative ones, and he continues to tweet from his hospital bed lies. He continues. If you want a massive tax increase and one that will shut down our economy, vote Democrat. It's just a bunch of lies. He's shouting to millionaires and billionaires because Joe Biden's going to be taxing them. That's who he's shouting at. And of course, we know that the other supporters of his who are not rich are going to be thinking, oh, yes, well, oh my gosh, there's definitely the reason why I'm supporting him is because he's going to keep our taxes low. No, he won't. Donald Trump's not going to keep your taxes low. He's going to keep billionaire taxes low. I told you this last week. He has cut taxes for billionaires at least 3 different times, if not 4. And he's going to continue doing that. The economy sucks for 95% of the people in this country. 95%. Are you among the 5% who are doing well financially? Are you among the 5% who doesn't know somebody who is sick with this virus? Who doesn't know somebody who has been on food lines? Nearly everybody in this country has been affected one way or another by this coronavirus. And Joe Biden, you have got to stop being so nice. You cannot make the mistake of continuing to lose news cycles to an insanely psychopathic human being. It's a huge mistake to be Gentleman Jim at this point. Or in your case, Gentleman Joe. This guy is tweeting and attacking and lying, and you're deciding to keep your negative ads off the air. What are you doing? Sounds like you're trying to be complicit with this nonsense. Not one Democrat of any real consequence was on television this weekend. Yeah, Adam Schiff was on one of the networks, but I'm talking about people in the Biden campaign. Simone Sanders was on with Jake Tapper, and I think she did an abysmal job. I was telling people over the weekend that the Democrats had to have a message out on Saturday. Yes, you say on Friday you make it clear. Yes, you want a speedy recovery. Then Saturday, boom, go back to business as usual. You saw what they did to RBG, didn't you? Mitch McConnell, within an hour or so after she had the announcement of her passing, put out a statement on Twitter. Oh, I'm going to pick a Supreme Court justice pick. I'm going to have a hearing and we're going to try to confirm him. Within an hour after the announcement of her passing, of one of the great troubadours for justice and one of the great people in this country, these guys don't have any sense of decency. And you're not being like them if you attack them on the record that they've produced. We all see it. The record is out there to be seen. I'm going to start tweeting out videos of all the moments in this last 4 years where Donald Trump has failed or has been sociopathic. There are 29 voting days left, and Joe Biden must adopt this message from a journalist of all people, Jake Tapper. Listen to what Jake Tapper had to say. This is what the Democrats and Joe Biden must be saying from here on in.
Sympathy for all of those suffering, including President Trump, who remains at Walter Reed Medical Center. But also anger, because so much of all this pain could have been avoided. So many of us since March have been doing everything we can to preserve the health of not only ourselves and our families, but our communities, our neighbors, you. Social distancing, wearing masks, holding events remotely. Weddings have been canceled, jobs lost. Children are missing out on in-person education and their ability to see friends. It's a real crisis. It's going to leave scars. 208,000 Americans have died. Thousands of Americans have lost loved ones without being able to properly mourn or even say goodbye. But we're in the middle of a once-in-a-century pandemic. Health experts say this is what we need to do in order to get to the other side. Regardless of the sympathy we may feel, we also know the president has been undermining these efforts, expressing disdain for health regulations and those who abide by them. Do you remember this?
Can you take it up because I cannot hear you?
I'll just speak louder, sir.
Oh, okay, good. You want to be politically correct. Go ahead.
No, sir, I just want to wear the mask.
Politically correct. The Americans who don't listen to science or medicine, who think masks are too intrusive, who pack bars, who willfully risk spreading the virus, you are making it worse for all of us. You are extending how long this pandemic will last. And it is tragic to say, many, if not most of you, are taking your cues from the leader of the free world. Last weekend, at an event held both inside and outside, but with no masks required and no distancing, President Trump introduced his Supreme Court nominee. So far, at least 8 attendees of that event have tested positive for the virus. Look at Senator Mike Lee at this event. My God, how are future generations going to try to make sense of these images of the Republican leaders of the nation acting like this during a once-in-a-century pandemic with more than 200,000 Americans dead? I wish every one of these leaders, Senator Lee, President Trump, Kellyanne Conway, Chris Christie, I wish you all a full and speedy recovery. But do you not see? It's not just through failed leadership or setting bad examples. You are all now literally risking spreading the virus yourselves. The president and his team have been behaving as if the pandemic is over. This callous indifference to the well-being of the citizens the president swore to protect, it's no longer just theoretical. It's no longer, well, they might get the virus. After finding out Hope Hicks, a top aide with whom the president had been in close contact, after learning she was sick with the virus and actually showing symptoms, the president flew to a fundraiser in New Jersey and mingled. Did anyone in the White House or on the Trump campaign consider at all the housekeepers and bartenders at Bedminster, the naval aviators who flew them there on Air Force One, the young interns or old donors with whom the president came in contact? Anyone? Anyone at all? I wish you all health and recovery and a long life. But we have to note the tragedy here. It is horrible and awful and profound. Sick and in isolation, Mr. President, you have become a symbol of your own failures. Failures of recklessness, ignorance, arrogance. The same failures you have been inflicting on the rest of us. Get well, and please, for the rest of us who don't get to go to Walter Reed, get well and get it together.
Stay tuned for a very important message from someone you may recognize. Jake Tapper was spot on with his analysis, especially the last minute or so of what he said yesterday on State of the Union on CNN. There is no question about who is decent here. And I think Joe Biden and the Democrats would be well advised to take up what Jake Tapper, a journalist, has said and just said in that audio that you heard. That is really what every Democrat must be doing now. There must be a no mercy approach. The gloves must come off. Think of everything that you've gone through in the year 2020, everything you've experienced. Think of the pain, the ups, the downs, the mostly very difficult things, the stress, the trauma. And strive toward the doing things that will help you. Strive toward the important things to do for mental health. Take walks, wear a mask, wear gloves. Do all of the very important things. 5 minutes of walking can make a difference. Even sticking your head out of a window can make a difference for a few minutes. But never forget the kind of pain you've been through, the country's been through. Our lives have been disrupted for the entire year almost. And if we had had someone in the White House and in some of these governor houses in these states who had cared to actually do something to help us, we wouldn't still be sheltered at home. We wouldn't still be working from home. We wouldn't still be in the situation where millions upon millions of jobs have been lost, where the economy has absolutely tanked for over 95% of the people in the United States, where millions of people are still on food bank lines all across the country, where 7.5 million people have coronavirus, where over 211,000 people have died from coronavirus, where we are facing up to 2,000 or 3,000 people dying a day in the next few weeks and months. This death cult must be stopped. And the only way we stop it is at the ballot box. The only way we begin to make sure that our pain lessens a little bit and we start to turn and push in a direction that is life-affirming, where we respect the humanity of everybody, where we continue to affirm that Black Lives Matter, where we continue to affirm a woman's right to choose, where we continue to guarantee justice for all, where we continue to maintain marriage for everybody. We must vote early, vote Democratic, and tell everybody we know to do the same. That is the message. You've got at least 5 more states voting today, October 5th. Early voting began today in California, in Iowa, Nebraska, parts of Montana, among other places. 5 states. There's now about 33 or 34 states voting early. And quite frankly, I'm stunned that the vice presidential debate, with everything I've said earlier on, is continuing on. There's no way that debate should even be going on, quite frankly. Mike Pence should be quarantining. But now there are over 33 or 34 states voting. Right now. The election is being decided as we speak by voters. If you have not voted yet and you are in an early voting state, vote today. Please vote today. Check your voter registration. Remind everybody you know to do the same. And tell them all to vote now. If you have already voted, make sure you remind others to. Make sure you phone bank. Make sure you campaign and volunteer for people in these Senate races across this country. We must flip this Senate to Democrats. Jamie Harrison, who did well in a debate over the weekend and won the debate easily against Lindsey Graham, and all these other Senate races across the country. We must support Sarah Gideon. We must support Mark Kelly, Jamie Harrison, Cal Cunningham. All of these people, we must support them. Raphael Warnock and all of that amazing free-for-all in Georgia. We must support John Ossoff in Georgia. We must support these Democrats running for the United States Senate. Doug Jones down in Alabama. All of these people must be voted in, all of these Democrats. And when it comes to the House, we must maintain Democratic control of the House. Joe Biden must be in the White House with Kamala Harris. We must have state governors be Democratic governors. We must have more Democratic state legislators voted in. We must have more Democratic mayors, Democratic dog catchers, Democratic city council people, state assembly people, city councilors, you name it, everybody, boards of supervisors across the board, Democratic, progressive. This is where the country is going and must continue to go. We must end the death cult. And the only way we do that is to vote. Thank you very much for listening. to this edition of The Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore.
We are one nation under God, and if we want to survive, we've got to find a way to live together and work together across our differences. And going high means unlocking the shackles of lies and mistrust with the only thing that can truly set us free, the cold, hard truth. So let me be as honest and clear as I possibly can. Donald Trump is the wrong president for our country. He has had more than enough time to prove that he can do the job, but he is clearly in over his head. He cannot meet this moment. He simply cannot be who we need him to be for us. It is what it is. Now, I understand that my message won't be heard by some people. We live in a nation that is deeply divided, and I am a Black woman speaking at the Democratic Convention. But enough of you know me by now. You know that I tell you exactly what I'm feeling. You know I hate politics. But you also know that I care about this nation. You know how much I care about all of our children. So if you take one thing from my words tonight, it is this. If you think things cannot possibly get worse, trust me, they can and they will if we don't make a change in this election. If we have any hope of ending this chaos, we have got to vote for Joe Biden like our lives depend on it. I know Joe. He is a profoundly decent man, guided by faith. He was a terrific vice president. He knows what it takes to rescue an economy, beat back a pandemic, and lead our country. And he listens. He will tell the truth and trust science. He will make smart plans and manage a good team. And he will govern as someone who's lived a life that the rest of us can recognize. When he was a kid, Joe's father lost his job. When he was a young senator, Joe lost his wife and his baby daughter. And when he was vice president, he lost his beloved son. So Joe knows the anguish of sitting at a table with an empty chair, which is why he gives his time so freely to grieving parents. Joe knows what it's like to struggle, which is why he gives his personal phone number to kids overcoming a stutter of their own. His life is a testament to getting back up. And he is going to channel that same grit and passion to pick us all up, to help us heal and guide us forward.